Hello and welcome to day 2 of our, I'd like to say, technically it's our inaugural virtual survey and GIS summit, but actually, as hopefully you've read, that this is actually basically a reboot, if we want to try to use that term, of the old survey summits that Esri would put on for during their user conference 2003 to probably, I don't know, 2011, 2012, something like that. But we appreciate everybody being here today. Hopefully this is day 2 for everyone, but if not, if this is your first entrance in, we appreciate you being here. We do have a great lineup again today. I can't thank everybody enough that we'll get some introductions here shortly, but thank everybody enough for making time to put their presentations together. I think it's going to be very, very beneficial, like yesterday's was, and hopefully we can all learn something together. First off, I would like to do a quick thanks to everybody at Nsps and Urisa that came together and did this. This is something that Brent Jones and I talked about last fall, trying to restart this thing, and really wanted to make sure that we pulled this thing off right. So enlisting our two groups of Urisa and Nsps, more specifically Wendy Nelson and Trish Milburn, putting it that's the brain power behind a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. We appreciate them doing everything they did. And then bringing on a couple of very, very key people to help put a lot of this on. Miss Linda Foster was our program coordinator, and between Brent and Amanda Allred, NSPS Vice President, as program chairs. They did a great job putting this whole thing together, and it's so far so good. And yes, we have recorded yesterday. We will record again today, and we'll distribute the recordings as soon as we can put them together. NSPS and Urisa will work together to get those out as well. So I guess without further ado, let's start up session 1 today, networking for young professionals. This is going to feature Sid Pandy from Dewberry, who is a Urisa Vanguard cabinet member. Welcome, Sid. Denver Winchester, professional surveyor and also president of the Young Surveyors Network for NSPS. Caroline Sampa with the Esri Young Professionals Network, and Shannon, is it Fries or Freeze?
Fries.
Fries, okay, just as it looks. Thank you. Also with the Esri Young Professionals Network. So with that, I'm not sure who wants to take the lead on this, other than I'd love to say thank you, young professionals, for being here with us today. And I'll throw out the first question for you all to tackle. Is it time for surveying and GIS to truly embrace each other, and how can we make that connection work? Sid, you want to go first?
Sure. I will say we actually had a couple slides we wanted to run through as well. Do you mind if we go through those first, and then can I open it up for questions?
That would be fine. Let's do that. Go ahead and throw the slides up. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up? You should see an intro slide, Survey and GIS Summit. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining. You've heard who's going to be presenting today. We'll keep the presentation short so we have as much time for conversation and questions as possible. But we wanted to just give everyone a sense of what our 3 organizations do: the Young Surveyors Network, the Esri Young Professionals Network, as well as the Urisa Vanguard Cabinet. So we'll just quickly go through those and then jump to any questions you have. So Denver, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you. I only you're going to see better slides today, but I have one slide and it's got a fancy background, so that's good enough, right? So I'm the current president of the Nsps Young Surveyors Network. We are an overarching organization dedicated to the development and recruitment of young surveyors. Ideally, we oversee a bunch of local groups that, you know, and help facilitate any needs they have of outreach and any kind of development they might need. We also, you know, try to have an input in SPS at, you know, in their organization and their meetings, and so there's a young perspective brought to the table. So primarily what we do is just try to listen to the members of our organization, and if there's issues that are primarily for younger professionals, like we try to address those issues going forward and just support people at a local level in their efforts for outreach and their efforts to make a difference at the state levels or school level or whatever level they're working on. We try to provide the infrastructure necessary for them. We'll also directly involve ourselves in any kind of issue that comes up if someone needs us to. And that's primarily what we do, but we're always available to answer any questions or connect people with other people, whatever is necessary out of us for surveyors or even GIS folks. If they need something, you know, we're in this together. If I know somebody, I'll get you somebody's name. So that's primarily what we do. And I mean, I could talk forever about it, but I don't know that this is the medium for that. So that's, I'm gonna leave it there and just say, if you have, you know, any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them in the question at the end of this.
All right, awesome. So I'll move on to just a quick overview of the Urisa Vanguard cabinet. If you're unfamiliar with us, we're an advisory board of young and emerging geospatial professionals within Urisa. It is a 3-year term that you're appointed to if you're selected. I'm currently beginning my 2nd year, and I'm the vice chair for the Vanguard cabinet this year. And our goal is essentially to work with the board of directors at Urisa and all of the chapters involved in Urisa across the country to really achieve 3 goals. One is just engaging with young and emerging geospatial professionals. We're not trying to age discriminate or anything like that. Anyone who's just getting started out in the field and wants to learn more about how to be successful, this is a good community for you to be involved in. We're working to provide opportunities for growth and development, whether that's training, presentations, things like that. And then just promoting innovation and collaboration and networking, similar to what this event is all about, between professionals within the industry, geospatial, remote sensing, surveying, and things like that. So we're kind of broken out into, I guess, a 3-part structure. So we've got 3 subcommittees, and then we have 1 working group that was just formed recently. So if any of you have heard of Urisa's mentoring program, our mentoring subcommittee manages that whole program, which is just a great way to, you know, bring people together and allow you to have a dedicated resource that you can ask questions to. If you like to be a mentor and support others, it's a great opportunity for you to give back. And we're currently serving over 200 people in a little over 20 countries right now. So it's a pretty cool program where you can meet people from across the world and learn about how they're applying geospatial technology. We've got our outreach group, so we're promoting young professionals, emerging professionals, and the things that they do and the activities that we organize and Urisa organizes, and just creating more opportunities for networking. And then GIS Pro, our subcommittee that kind of works to support Urisa as a whole with their annual conference, which actually was just a few weeks ago in Baltimore, working to give young and emerging professionals an opportunity to present in a dedicated track, as well as hosting some networking opportunities there as well. We recently formed a Coalition for Young Professionals working group. So for anyone who might not have been selected for the Vanguard cabinet or just, you know, can't commit to that kind of time frame, this group here is really focused on bringing those people together and giving them an opportunity to channel their energy and their passion to grow the geospatial industry in a variety of ways, connecting them with universities and bringing more of those young professionals into this industry and providing them with opportunities to be successful. So lots of fun stuff there. If you're interested in getting involved, we've got an application period that opens up in June of every year. So you can apply if you want to be a member of the cabinet. If you are selected, your term will begin at GIS Pro, which happens in October of every year. Definitely check out our mentoring network if you are looking for a mentor or want to be one. We're always looking for folks to sign up and participate. We also have our Gmail address, urisa.vc@gmail. So if you want to be part of the Coalition for Young Professionals, reach out to us. And then you can follow us on social media as well. So feel free to reach out to us at any point. That's all I have. If you want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. Happy to chat with anyone and answer any questions you guys might have. So we'll go ahead and move on to the Esri Young Professionals Network.
It's wonderful to hear all of the great work that you and Denver are doing. The Esri Young Professional Network, we are a community for GIS professionals, which of course includes surveyors. And similar to what we've heard so far, we're really there to help young professionals connect, learn, and lead. Those are going to be our three pillars. With the Esri Young Professional Network, similar to what Sid said, we are all about diversity of thought. So we define a young professional as starting out in their GIS career to 7 years. And after that, you don't age out of our group, you just become a mentor. So we do also have that same mentor push that we've heard so far. We're really present at the Esri conferences right now. So we have the upcoming Fed GIS conference in February. We have the UC conference that we're already planning for. That's going to be this summer. It looks like those are going to be in person, so very excited about that. And part of joining the Young Professional Network actually means that you get a discounted rate to attend those conferences. So if you're a young professional and you are trying to maybe convince your boss or your manager that they should send you to those conferences, this discount can definitely help with that. Within this, we are also working to start some webinars to connect more virtually. And so Sid, if you'll go to the next slide, there are a few different ways that you can connect with us. We do have a LinkedIn group, and then we also have a page on the Esri community, formerly known as GeoNet. And that's where a lot of our questions, our blogs, our interactions are taking place. Also feel free to follow us on Twitter. To register to become part of the community and get that discount, there's going to be a survey 123 that you'll find on that community page. You just fill that out, you become a member, and then you have access to those discounts. So that's all I have for the Esri Young Professional Network. So I think we're ready to open it up for questions.
Yep. Tim, do you mind restating your question from earlier? We have a couple here just in case, but
Sure. No, exactly. No, it's really to all do this. It's really back to all four of you. And, that was one of the statements that's also made in the Q&A. I feel like we're already behind the 8 ball. It's a decade late, which I think it's even longer than that, but that's my personal opinion. Why is now such a good time, if of any, to get surveying and GIS really on the same page, considering the technologies and how we complement each other? What do you feel like we can do to make that relationship work that much better in the future? Sid, you want to
go? Sure. I think that the technology's improved so much over the years, and it's so much easier to integrate with other softwares and other workflows. So I think now is a really good time, because I think the whatever barriers there may have been are starting to come down. And conversations like this are a great way to help accelerate that, just kind of understanding where we all play in the kind of work that we do, and how we can collaborate more effectively, and just talking about the ways in which we can get involved with what our respective groups are doing, I think helps a lot.
Okay, Denver, what about you?
I think the argument could be made that, surveyors jumped the sharks on geospatial information a long time ago. And in theory, the GIS community should be a part of the survey community already. But that's just not what happened. And at this point, I think the only barrier between the two is the public's knowledge of what we both do. They're complementary of each other, but they're different in a way that's hard to educate the public. And in the future, they won't be that different with emerging technologies and accuracy standards and all of the things that are up and coming. And I think there's probably some effort could be made at a county level for assessors and realtors and stuff like that to explain, that where GIS is now and where it's going and what we do and how they're, converging together. Because there's going to be a point where GIS is going to be as accurate as what we have or what have you using our data. And I think you have to be there. You have to, as a group of professionals, educate people before you get there, or you're going to have a situation where the public keeps putting some kind of divider between the two of us, which is not helpful to either set of people.
Right. Well, and yeah, you're right. Because it's two professions that still the public really doesn't understand what each of us do, and honestly probably couldn't tell the difference if we tried to explain it to them. No, those are some good points. Caroline, how about you? What do you think?
I do work more on the GIS side. And I think that something that Denver and Sid brought up that's really interesting is this idea of explaining what we do to the public, whether it's surveying or GIS. That's something that we all have in common is you say, I work in GIS or I work in surveying, and blank stares. And so I think that with that now is such a powerful time, or such a great time for us to start collaborating, for us to really be working together, because people are starting to find out what it means to be a GIS professional. People are starting to find out what it means to be a surveying professional. And we're seeing that even through the job market. There's tons of jobs available now. And so this barrier of having to advocate and explain what surveying is, and this barrier of having to advocate and explain what GIS is, that's what Sid's talking about when at least part of it, not to put words in your mouth, Sid, but when we talk about those barriers coming down, that's allowing us to work together and collaborate now. I know that Nicole even mentioned in her post here in the chat that when she was graduating, she wanted to look into, she was graduating in GIS, wanted to look into doing more surveying, and even at an academic level, there was a barrier put there where her credits were transferring. And so hopefully through this knowledge, through this, just the power of surveying, the power of GIS, we'll start to see those barriers come down naturally. But I think that all of us have a part to play in that too, with just being open and wanting to learn and staying curious.
Sure. No, yep, you've hit it on the head as well. All right, Shannon, you got 3 opinions out there. What can you add to that? Because there's definitely some places we can go with these two professions.
It's all pretty new to me, actually. I just started working in the GIS community, so to hear both sides about how there's a lot of differences with them is pretty new to me too, to learn that. So I don't know exactly what the structural differences are, but I kind of agree with what I was hearing too, that there should be collaboration, because although it may seem like they're close in terms of like how the work is being done, I think that there could be more that could be done also with people coming together from both sides, and just making sure that everything is clear when being presented. So I think there's a lot of good things to be taken away, but I'm not an expert in either area either. So the collaboration part is something that I think I took away and I could agree on in terms of like the GIS side and surveyor side.
No, and that's good because I'll be honest, Shannon. That it's nice. You're very open. You're very honest and say, "Hey, I'm new to this," but you're seeing it from both ways, both sides, and that's nice. A nice perspective because you're not coming in simply GIS or simply surveying and going, "We don't need one or the other," as we have done for literally generations now. So that's very good. I guess I'm going to jump to a question that that Galen Scott from NGS has thrown up here. I think this is a great question for this group going forward because obviously with younger professionals, younger minds, and dealing with data on a different reality than, for lack of a better term, us old timers. What does this group think about the what NGS is doing with the modernization of the National Spatial Reference System and moving to a dynamic datum versus the static datum we've had for many, many years? With the implementation of so much GNSS data, with gravity, with all of these things, and knowing it's basically a moving game board now. What's your take on how can we embrace this change of data and how it's going to be it's going to change? I'm going to go back. I'm going to reverse order. Shannon, do you have what do you know about the NSRS and the changes, and you have an opinion on how we can approach it and embrace it?
That's actually something I'm not also aware of. So I'm not too sure how to answer that question.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's fair enough. Caroline, how about you?
Yeah, I would like to approach this question just kind of as young professionals as a whole. When it comes to changes, I think that as a young professional, we need to be driving change. So often we hear about this top-down approach where the people who have been here for 25 years are making the decisions and then they get reflected, and then young professionals feel like they're not being heard. They might feel burnt out. And my take on that is it's really on us as young professionals to drive this change. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy because it's not. We're going against the status quo. Sometimes we're setting boundaries and that creates a ripple effect. But within doing that, what we can start to show like, hey, look, it's better if we use this. It's better if we do it this way. What I found that works well personally for me and in my position is making the changes myself as a young professional, doing it for a little bit, and then being able to show the return on investment. So whatever that might look like, but if it's, I take some time to create a new document and I want to implement it. I work as a facilitator quite often. So if I want to try something new facilitating, I collect that feedback. Here we're talking about accuracy of data. Here we're talking about something where the return on investment is pretty clear, but we still need to show it. There's change is hard, change is scary, and that growth is hard and scary. So it's going to be hard and scary for us, but we have to kind of take the bull by the horns, push through, and then show the benefit of it, show that it can be done.
Exactly.
I feel passionately about this, if you can tell.
Yes, very much so. And that's the kind of enthusiasm we have to continue, not just as GIS, as surveying. I mean, as the geospatial community, we do need to be able to take that passion going forward and drive that forward. So absolutely, Caroline, you're in the right place. You're in the right place here. And this is obviously a more significant change than, I liked what Galen said here about, there are some people that have, some old timers that have said they would rather retire than have to deal with a dynamic datum than versus a static datum. Well, to me, I liken that to saying, well, I'm no longer going to use a push button phone. I'm going to stay with my rotary phone. I mean, if we're going to talk about the same level of moving forward, I mean, yes, it's a big deal, but obviously it's something we've got to live with. All right, Mr. Denver, as the surveyor side and dealing with the datum changes, give it to us. What do you see as why we need to keep pushing this thing forward, especially as young professionals?
Well, I think there's two things with this. One is it does bring its own set of problems. For the general public, they already believe we have some kind of cadastre system based on coordinates and whatnot, because they can, get on a map and look and, hey, that's where my line is, or what have you. So I think from a public perspective, I think that actually brings its own set of problems. But for the geospatial community, I don't understand the argument like I would rather retire than deal with it, when in reality, most of it is software driven anyway, and you're really not going to have to do a whole lot of anything to change it. And I think it broadly benefits the geospatial community to have a mapping plane and to have all of these individual ones that to do, grid, ground, all this good jazz without huge distortions that, I'll be honest, a lot of the old timers weren't taking into account anyway. They were just turning on something and hitting some buttons and going down the road. I think that, modernizing everything, while it's going to be hard for a lot of people to understand, the truth is, like, you don't have to understand the minutia of it. And I think it's up to those of us who do, and those of us that are younger and are going to be dealing with the data that somebody else reviews or what have you, to make it pretty clear that this change, while huge on a daily level, is not a big, massive change. It should not destroy your workflow or anything like that. And try to teach the other professionals that you're around that going forward, the benefits of this far outweigh whatever initial change you have to deal with.
Sure.
It's kind of where I stand on that.
All right, Sid, wrap us up. What do you think? How should we keep pushing forward, and how can the young professionals be the ones to really drive this datum change and the adoption and the overall acceptance of a datum change?
I was just going to say what Carolyn and Denver just said, honestly. I'll be honest, this isn't something I'm an expert on either, but I would say that I just see a huge opportunity here for young professionals on the survey and the geospatial side here, just like what Denver was saying, to kind of showcase that it's not on a day-to-day level, your workflows aren't going to be that that different or significantly impacted. And for those of us that are younger and will be kind of using this system long term, to take it as an opportunity to really understand it, maybe not at like the super fine detail, but enough to be able to showcase how it's used, showcase the benefits of it, and how on a daily basis it, you can do your work and it doesn't impact things, and it might make life easier in some ways. So I just think it's a good opportunity for young professionals to pick up this knowledge and stand out from the crowd as well. Like take your opportunities to showcase all of that information in a way that's easy for people to digest and see the benefit of.
Yep, exactly. And thank you, Galen, for that question. And yes, it's in the chat, but any thoughts, questions, concerns, suggestions on the modernization, send it to ngs.feedback@noaa.gov. They like the feedback. They truly, truly do. That is a great group of people over there, and they listen, and they want to make the best possible system they can, user-friendly, but yet realistic to what the needs are. So thank you, Galen. And I guess something you just kind of touched on a little bit, Sid, that I want to bring this up with all of you, and about being able to learn some of the new technologies, new methodologies, procedures, equipment, software, and being that leader and going forward with that. Do you see this as an opportunity to basically, I'm kind of reverse mentor the older generation and help them understand these technologies, these different ways of going about doing things. Shouldn't this be an opportunity? Caroline, I'm going to start with you this time.
Sorry, I had a little bit of a dog incident there.
Oh.
Do you mind repeating the question for me?
Oh, sure. Can we use new technology and what the young professionals are learning in leading the charge on this new technology and software and things as basically an opportunity to almost reverse mentor the older generations, or I'll say the less educated on these technologies, to make this work?
I think absolutely, but I do think it's also a little bit of a fine line there, because while as a young professional, you might come in with more knowledge of a specific software or a specific way that things are happening. There's also no replacement for the 10, 15, 20, 25 years of experience that you get on the job. And so I think there is a balance between how much is the software improving versus how much knowledge does the person have that's improved their work over the last 20, 25 years. So I think that mentorships should go both ways. I think there's always something for us as young professionals to be learning from the folks who have been here. But in my opinion, a good mentor is going to be curious. They're going to want to learn. You'll hear me say the term like curious a ton. I think that's one of the most important things in being a professional in general, is staying curious. So when I look for a mentor, I look for someone who's curious, who wants to learn from me, because I want them to drive that learning in me. So I think it goes both ways. I feel like that might have been a little bit vague, but to me, it all comes down to the curiosity. What do they want to learn? And really highlighting that within the relationship that you're building.
You bet. I'm gonna throw this at Denver now, because I know, in full disclosure, Denver and I have been working together on several things on the NSPS side, and trying to bridge that gap between all the generations. So, Denver, do you see this as an opportunity? I know the answer, but I need to hear it on where we need to go as far as bridging that gap across the generations.
I think, if you've got a cracked window, you can open it or you can close it. And a lot of people in this situation, the guys that are going to retire because of it or what have you, they're closing it. And you definitely have the ability to take this as an opportunity to showcase that young people have a set of skills that you don't have. And it's no fault of your own. It's just that we grew up with a set of technology that we learned at like the easiest age to learn. It's a lot of things come more naturally to us in the technology side of things. And I think that's what makes a difference between a good and a bad mentor, is the people willing to accept input and the other people who are teaching them how they do it, and that's the only way to do it. And I think too often you find, at least in surveying, I won't speak for GIS, I don't know a ton of GIS professionals aside from networking. A lot of the elder statesmen, if you will, have their way of doing things, and that's the only way they ever want to know. And they will defend their way of life until they'll die on that hill. And I think that this is an opportunity to maybe get some of those people off of their high horses and accept help from the younger generation. And then once they do that, then the younger generation feels like they become more engendered into surveying because they care about, their boss cared about their opinion. And like, nobody wants to work somewhere where every time you try to have input, you're shut down. And this might be the first real time in my career where like the younger professionals are going to have a valid set of input that older professionals just won't have the knowledge in. And I do see it as an opportunity. I just hope that people take it.
Sure. Sid, what do you think? Is this an opportunity to help bridge those relationships across the generations?
Absolutely. I mean, I I feel like I do that all the time, just trying to learn like little new technologies and share it with folks. I mean, when everything went virtual, how many people were struggling with Teams and Zoom and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes just showing those like little simple tips and tricks that some of us are able to pick up really quickly or have just been used to using throughout our lives can make a big difference for people who've been doing things a different way for a much longer period of time. I think it's a great way for young professionals to stand out from the crowd as well. You know, if you're willing to put in the effort to pick up a new skill, figure out how it applies to the work that you do or the work that others in your orbit do, and can showcase that in a way that is easy for them to understand, easy to pick up, and ideally makes their workflows or their lives easier. I think you stand a greater chance of getting additional opportunities or having the opportunity to, you know, provide your input or feedback on certain things and how that can be implemented in what's being done at your organization or in your line of work. So I do agree there's obviously benefit to having the experience of people who've been doing things a certain way. But I think sometimes people hesitate to step out of that and you know, offer their own opinion because they feel like they have less experience or they need to like pay their dues or things like that. But when in reality, this is the perfect time for you to step out and showcase that you've got the interest, the passion, the drive to learn this new technology and make a difference with it.
Exactly. All right, Shannon, you've already said you're new to all of this. And I can see where, you know, being new to this, yes, you're going to try to take all this in. However, from your perspective, is this a good opportunity to whatever you can learn to help somebody else of an older generation?
Yeah, I think definitely. Even prior to coming to Esri, I've felt like I've obviously always worked with somebody that's older than me, and most of my supervisors have been much older than me, to the point where like I have always been asked for help, and I'm willing to help. And being somebody that's younger, like there's no shame in asking for help also, and putting aside any pride that might be there with the age differences or like even job title statuses and where we lie there doesn't matter as much because there's always something you can learn from each other. So just from my experience, I think it's always rewarding to ask each other questions and to learn from each other. Like as much as I can learn from somebody that's older than me and that's my supervisor, there's a lot they can learn from me too, because maybe there is more I know on the technology side. That doesn't mean that they couldn't grasp it or they couldn't also be successful in that. But I think maybe we're a bit quicker because we've grown up with that. Just being able to grasp certain things a little bit quicker, but certainly we can all work together in terms of helping each other. It doesn't matter necessarily what status you have or what age you might be. So it's definitely beneficial to work with each other and to learn from each other. So there is mentoring that goes back and forth, even with me mentoring someone else that's older than me or asking my perspective. So, and all of that, it's always something that I think I'll be experiencing as I'm working. So, and I think it's a good thing too. So
Good. Yes, you're absolutely right that we have to be open to be able to work. You know, and I'll say this. I mean, I'm proudly a Gen Xer, and one thing that has that I've always carried within myself, just from my past, my upbringing, the way my parents, you know, raised me, was respect your elders. Respect your elders. Well, really, that works both ways, and I think that's to the point where we need to start getting that mutual respect. And I think, unfortunately, societal conditions have always been, it's always respect, kind of respect up in generation, when realistically it really needs to be in all directions. I want to go back to a comment from our friend Richard Kleinman from Wisconsin, NSPS director. Thank you, Richard. Attitude, generalization, and stereotyping happens both directions, old directed at young and young directed at old. It antagonizes the relationship, absolutely. And whether we call youngsters and old timers, I mean, that in itself right there is antagonizing. We need to figure out how to get around that. So any thoughts on how we do some of those things? Denver, what do you got?
I'll start by saying that, like, a lot of times, it seems like I'm making a broad generalization, because I feel like it's hard to differentiate between people that are, because especially once I got involved in like societies and stuff, there are a lot of mentoring people, and there are a lot of people that really care about how the young professionals go forward in it. And I'm not trying to generalize at all. I know I need to work on doing a better job of making that clear. I just meant, mean in general, whenever I speak like that we need to work on the people who aren't those people. And there's the same thing with young professionals. I know a bunch of people roughly my age that would rather not listen to somebody that was older than them about anything. And I don't think that helps either of us. I'm more than happy to sit at a table with people twice my age or people half my age. I want to know, I want as much knowledge as I can gain. And I think people just got to be willing to sit at the table and not just speak about other groups, about the other ages, without being willing to meet them in the middle and have a conversation. And I think too many people, especially professionals, and young professionals and old professionals, will speak about the other group like they're not there. And I don't think that's helpful for anybody. And I do need to do a better job of making that clear when I speak. But yeah, so my thing is, we just all need to sit at the same table. And I only really want people at that table that are willing to listen.
Agreed. Shannon, you have anything more to say about that, or do you feel good with what you had said before?
I think that, like, I agree a little bit, but also I kind of read people and kind of see like how they feel. If they feel open to hearing my opinions and hearing me share my side of things, then I'm more willing to also be open. If they're open towards me, I'm more willing to be open back. So if it seems like there's conversations on the side and I'm not included because maybe they don't think I'll understand or I'm younger, then maybe I'll hold back more and won't feel like jumping in. But it kind of, for me, I have to like kind of see how people are and like if they're willing to include me and want my opinion. So if not, I'll just hold back. I won't really say anything. So
good. Sid, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to use those labels sometimes of like young and old or experienced and inexperienced and things like that. So it's definitely something everyone needs to work on. I would say, a big part of it is just developing that mutual understanding of what each side or each group is going for, and staying focused on a goal, right? So rather than it being my way or their way, it's, well, how do we both come together and accomplish this goal, or whatever it is we're trying to do. And I think when both sides are able to recognize that we're both working towards the same goal, then it becomes easier to hear that the input or the perspective from someone who may be older or younger than you, or have done things differently than the way you've done it. And I said this earlier, I think sometimes just having a conversation, even if it's awkward, can be really helpful, because I've personally seen people who are who are more experienced will say, well, we want these younger folks to step up and to speak up more and show us that they're engaged or want to do more. And the younger generation hesitates to do that because they don't think the more experienced generation wants to hear it, and neither of them end up speaking to each other, right? So it's like these completely inaccurate assumptions of the other group. And if they just got together and talked and said, well, I want you to contribute, and the other group says, I want to contribute, then great, have your conversation and keep moving forward. So I think sometimes it's just a matter of recognizing that you just need to keep those lines of communication open and take those descriptors out of the conversation.
Exactly. Caroline, wrap us up.
I have a lot of feelings about this. The first thing I want to say is I want to challenge the unprofessionals that are here to really think about what you actually know when you're going into any type of relationship, any kind of mentorship. When we graduate from college, sometimes we can get this feeling of yeah, I graduated from college, I know this. And then we get into the real world and see I was using ArcMap in school, and now ArcGIS Pro is where everyone is. So I didn't really know that much. Being reflective with yourself and understanding where you have opportunities to grow and learn, because everyone has those. For those of you here that are mentors, I'm going to challenge you to do the same thing. Think about what do you actually know, and think about where you can continue to grow. That can help when you're building those relationships. When it comes to having everyone at the table, maybe you're not connecting about surveying, maybe you're not connecting about GIS, but that's kind of where small talk comes in. Find something to connect on, like football. I talk about football to so many people. Nancy and I earlier connected because she lives where my grandfather lived. And so you can find those different ways to connect and build a relationship. If they aren't open and vulnerable right off the bat, I still say let's bring them to our table. Let's use our skills, grow our skills so that we can get them to a place where they're learning. Let's all do this together. There's actually a book I read, I cannot remember the name of it right now, but it talks about how you can build a rapport quickly. I'll find that and I'll try to drop it in the chat. I think it's a great book too. It's super short. It took me less than a day to read. I'm not a quick reader, but I think it's a great way to implement some of those skills, build relationships with everyone. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your education is. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry. We can use these skills, we can grow, and we can collaborate more.
Exactly. I tell you what, it's got me thinking right here, right now, and the four of you, I would like to personally invite you onto the NSPS podcast, Surveyor Says, to talk about some of these gender relationship things. I think it would be something to hear some good conversation about those things. I think we ought to throw that out there. And for those who aren't familiar with the NSPS podcast, Surveyor Says, we try to touch on a lot of these type of subjects and relationships and the people behind them. Linda, Brent's been on there. I've had several. Denver's been on there a couple of times. It's something I think we should continue that conversation there as well. We're running out of time here. Actually, we're supposed to be up against a Q&A, but I have one last question I want to ask, and it'll probably take us the last 5 or 10 minutes. And it's kind of the elephant in the room. Diversity. I'm looking at my screen now and I see a lot of diversity, and I love every minute of it. I love the picture of it. I do, because it's so much different than what I would typically see looking out over a board of directors meeting at an NSPS meeting. How do each of you see an opportunity with surveying and GIS and bringing the technology together and bringing people from different walks of life together with different backgrounds, different mindsets? How can we help this diversity issue? I don't want to say issue, because I think it's more of an opportunity for people that wouldn't normally be exposed to a couple of great professions to be put together here. Sid, want to start with you. Where do you think, how can we help? Like I said, I hate saying diversity problem, but it is a problem, and we can bring a more diverse group of people into both of these professions.
Yeah, I think it's about where you go to create awareness about what we all do. Like I know a lot of companies, they've got their their go-to schools where they recruit from, and they just continue to keep recruiting there because that's where they get their, you know, the best numbers from, right? And you're going to get the same kind of candidates that get the same kind of training year after year. So I think it's important to kind of consider the other, you know, the other options that are out there. What other schools, what other programs, what other communities can you reach out to educate them about the benefits of this kind of technology? I have some friends who do great work, you know, within their communities to educate students who are at like the middle school and high school level, and just showcase like there's actually, you know, the possibility of having a great career in this industry, whether it's surveying or GIS, and they get them inspired then and just kind of continue to stay in contact as they go through school and college, and then help them find their way into the industry. So I think it's really just about where you are in your communities and how you're reaching out to folks and creating that understanding that there's a lot of great opportunities in both of our fields that can be pursued.
Exactly. Shannon, you're new to GIS, you're new to Esri, but obviously you're a young woman, very bright, very articulate, but yet you have so much to offer. Is it challenging? And is this a good industry to be jumping into as a young woman?
Yeah, I think starting out where I am right now, I feel comfortable in the community I'm in. I feel like it is diverse. I think the more diversity you have, the more you can learn, the more that people have to offer. So I'm for diversity in whatever way that is or wherever it is. Even my university I came from, UC Riverside, was very diverse. So I've always been around a diverse group of people, and I like a work culture that has diversity. I like working with teams that have diversity. So there's always something you can learn from each other. And like with our cultures also coming together, that's also something unique that I can learn from other people. So I really appreciate when an organization has diversity. So that's what I would have to say.
Okay, very good. Caroline, how about you?
I think that we're in a unique position when it comes to diversity because we're the ones out there collecting the data. We're the ones analyzing the data and telling the story. And so I think that we have a unique responsibility to use that data. And that would be my question for everyone listening here today is, how are you using the data? We are both very data-driven professions. As a woman in STEM, I've definitely faced my own challenges, both through school and as a professional. What's helped me is connecting with others in similar places. The Esri Professional Network, we get to collaborate with a lot of other communities that are at Esri. And so I'm just going to throw out some names that I'd recommend folks look into. They're great places to connect with other folks, to increase diversity, and to really understand what is it like from someone else's perspective, because that's a big thing. Some of those are Women in GIS, Black Girls Map, North Star, Blacks in GIS. They're all present at conferences, and they're wonderful communities to look into. They do podcasts, they do webinars. So just a quick Google search will pull those up. And I highly recommend that every person on here, no matter what your background is, no matter how long you've been in surveying, you just take a little bit of time to Google those and kind of find out what they're about.
Good. Denver, I saved you for last because, well, we look at the cross-section of surveyors across the country, and yeah, it's when you say surveyors and diversity, that's kind of an oxymoron. So how can the surveying profession, especially, and then this collaboration with GIS, how can that be helped through diversity? And what, is there an opportunity for the surveying profession to grow?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that GIS is a little more inherently diverse just because of the access to it. I'm not saying that is an excuse for surveying or anything, but a lot of people in cities will never have a use for a surveyor. They may have heard of it, they may have done whatever, but generally speaking, there's roadblocks into that, like having land, having had to need a surveyor, having, what have you. And I think that either the collaboration of the two, so that maybe there's some people that cross over, do both of them, is something that could be very useful in the future. But I think primarily in surveying, the effort should be in removing the roadblocks that are in place for diversity, like, inner city schools and, women in STEM and all these sorts of things, and like leveraging all these existing platforms that people have to facilitate diversity. And, scholarships for people to go to surveying schools, especially specific diversity scholarships, just reasons to push each state or each group or whatever into looking for diversity, as opposed to just maintaining the status quo. And I think GIS, if you could get a group of people in both together like we are today or whatever, I think it's a lot easier to get somebody in to do both things and pull diversity, use GIS's natural diversity to our advantage.
Agreed. I think that's something going forward. I truly think, and this is my personal opinion, that I think going forward, the surveying profession, there will always be a need for land, and that land aspect and conveyance and determining ownership and things. But I think over time, especially as the data collection becomes more and more, comes together in the same mixing bowl that we keep referring to at times, it's going to become about data collection. It's going to come about dissemination and data management. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for all of us involved and everybody that's interested in anything geospatial. Excuse me. But so I got to tell you, this was a great conversation. There's a lot of great energy here, and I know our conference committee appreciates taking the time to put this all together and